Who the hell would watch a 45-minute video of some guy in his sauna in Estonia rambling about AI? Well, a surprisingly large number of you, so thank you. I'm just blown away by how many people watched and commented on my last video about why I think machine buying will be the megatrend of AI. Link in the description. I was even invited onto South African radio this week. I was on Cape Talk talking about the issues. They watched the video as well and invited me on.
What has happened over the last, say, 4 years in South Africa has been the boom in e-commerce. But as revolutionary as that sounds, and as it may be, for some it in fact may be a tedious process. And this is where computers do your purchasing for us. It's called machine buying. Rather than just acting as a medium between us and an online retailer actually doing the buying, the selection. Adam Rang takes a look at our future of AI. He joins me now on the line. Good morning, Adam, all the way from Estonia. How are you doing?
Hi, Lester. Lester, good morning.
Adam has a channel on YouTube that takes us into the future of AI, and your latest video is about machine buying. Maybe for the layperson, what is machine buying?
Yeah, so at the moment, like the current wave of interest in AI has been sparked by these large language models, which are really good at telling us things. But at the moment, now a lot of companies are really rushing into the next stage, which is AI agents that actually go out and do things for us. And there are some really interesting analysts who think one of the most impactful things that AI agents can go out and do for us is make purchases on our behalf. They can use huge amounts of data to go and negotiate deals, find better deals, and make the most timely and efficient purchases for us. And some analysts believe that could have a bigger economic impact than even e-commerce.
Since posting that video, I've been busy. I've been in Amsterdam with procurement leaders from some of the world's largest companies, including Walmart, who were there talking about how they're going to scale machine buying or a form of machine buying called autonomous negotiations. I'm now back in Estonia, and I've only just caught up on all your comments. There were like really interesting comments, also lots of great encouragement that I should keep making videos like this, and lots of tips on how I can do them better. My favorite actually came from this one guy who said it was a great video, even though he was also having a meltdown over my misuse of the word recurring. I was saying reoccurring instead of recurring. Since then, I've been studying the dictionary to try and understand the nuance between those two different words. And I'm actually not sure I still get it yet. But, you know, if it is annoying that I sometimes use words incorrectly, then please do let me know if it keeps happening again. Anyway, one excellent tip that many of you left is that I need to be clearer at the start of the video what the whole video is about. And also I need to stop banging the table. I'll stop doing that as well, or I'll try. So in this video, I'm going to give a bit of an update about machine buying, but mostly respond to some of the excellent comments that were left on that last video. And along the way, I'm going to go off on a bit of a rambling tangent about why more people aren't talking about machine buying yet, why the washing machine was more impactful than the moon landings, and why aliens probably didn't build the pyramids. Bear with me, it should all start to make sense. And also, I'm going to bring on a special guest. The first time having a guest in this kind of a new format for making videos right behind me. So we'll see how that works out. Yeah, let's get started. One commenter writes, I agree that the idea of machine buying is or will be a big thing, but don't call it AI. It's not AI. You can replace every mention of AI in this video with just scripts or programs. Yeah. What's valuable is that machines act in an agentic, autonomous way and complete useful tasks with superhuman capabilities. So scripts and programs can be described as rules-based AI, but I'm not hung up on that name. Perhaps the commentator thinks only generative AI is real AI, but for effective machine buying, generative AI can be incorporated alongside rules-based AI. I just wouldn't trust generative AI on its own. It can't act autonomously, as it can hallucinate, it can be tricked by whoever is interacting with it, but it can play a useful complementary role in machine buying. But no matter what you define as real AI, there will always be someone to say that's not real AI. Like, AI has become this ever-evolving, ill-defined buzzword that's become really quite tiresome these days. We're on the cusp of AI, apparently, but I think we're always going to be on the cusp of AI because AI is always going to be defined as that next thing on the horizon. So, like right now, the next thing on the horizon is this idea of AGI, artificial general intelligence. It's not actually clear if that's achievable, or if it is achievable, will it then finally satisfy the definition of AI, or are we then going to look forward to something next as a real definition of AI? And in some ways, this is quite like philosophical, like what is artificial intelligence? But maybe AI just isn't too useful a term. Now, if you're building a startup right now, I know you're probably under a lot of pressure, particularly from investors, to slap the word AI all over your marketing material. The funny thing is that like, it seems the more a company talks about AI, the less it's genuinely using technologies that could be described as AI. And some of the most interesting companies using AI right now actually don't have the word AI anywhere in their marketing material. I'll give you one example from Estonia. There's a company called Starship Technologies. They make these cute little delivery robots that are delivering groceries, solving this problem of last mile delivery. They're popping up all over the world. And these are the product of more than a decade of machine learning. And yet I went to their website recently, and all that technical information is buried really deep. They don't use the word AI anywhere. Instead, they just talk about how good they are at autonomous deliveries. I really respect a company that just talks about the real value they deliver. I think that's the most radical thing you can do right now. Building a startup is not to talk about AI, how you're disrupting with AI, but just talk relentlessly about the actual real value that you can deliver. I work for a native AI company making AI agents, and we're 5 years old. We used to talk about AI more, but we go to trade shows these days where we're one of the only companies not talking about AI or not having AI in our slogan. Maybe, the term AI is going to fade away like the term cyberspace, faded away, because as the commenter suggested, we can use more precise language. And if we're going to talk more broadly about the whole overall trends, then I just like talking about machines, because AI is really just an acceleration of long-term trends when it comes to machines extending their capabilities and acting autonomously, which I think is the really key thing. And, then who really cares whether it's AI? That's a philosophical question. What matters is, can it actually act in an agentic way and go out and produce real value for us? And then that puts a bit of a different perspective on comments like this next one. This was the top voted comment under my last video. Dude, no one wants AI to make choices for them. Not for food or clothes or anything. How about an AI robot dishwasher? Make me a bot that can wash the dirty dishes and I'll give you money. Yeah. This is a very popular sentiment at the moment. There's a meme going around with it, which was started by this tweet earlier this year. You know what the biggest problem with pushing all things AI is? Wrong direction. I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing, not for AI to do my art and writing so that I can do my laundry and dishes. Leaving aside the fact that AI generated art and writing is pretty crap, and you can still do those things yourself. If we switch AI to machines, you get a bit of a different perspective here. Look, I don't want to sound like I'm showing off, but I actually already have machines that do those things. I have a dishwashing machine, I have a clothes washing machine, I have a clothes drying machine. I'm sure a lot of you do. It's like, how is this a surprise to anyone that these things already exist? Even though I'm sure there are some marketers somewhere working on a AI-enabled washing machine as we speak. Okay, yeah, I see we are already at that stage. But like, what value is that adding? Like, they're quite vague about that. But in fairness to the marketers here, they are listening to the markets, or at least the memes that people say they want more AI in their dishwashing machines. But the reality is that like we are already living in the most prosperous times in human history thanks to technology like washing machines. And that's why I think if you talk about this technology, the evolution of technology as the evolution of machine technology, it makes a lot more sense, adds a lot more clarity. Our last president of Estonia is someone who did that. She talked a lot about technology, and she made this exact point, as explained by President Kaljulaid. While man's first steps on the moon didn't change much in people's everyday lives, the introduction of the washing machine actually influenced everybody's life to a much greater extent. She said the introduction of new technologies should be somewhat like using a washing machine. They should be available to everyone, reliable, and easy to use. Yes, absolutely. I think too many people around the world are too complacent when it comes to understanding what has already been achieved through technology, but by not thinking clearly enough about that, we're also not thinking clearly enough about what the future trajectory can be in order to make the most out of next developments in technology. And that's partly why I want to make more videos on this channel about technology, but from Estonian perspectives, because I think perspectives here and in many other places can really add to the discussion about how we want technologies like AI to be developed. Look, I fucking love space. I want us to go back to the moon. That's not even a very popular view pretty much anywhere. But at the same time, if you can appreciate the dishwasher as the innovative, disruptive technology that it is, then you can also better understand what comes next. So let's take the example of the dishwasher. Like, yeah, okay, it's annoying loading and unloading the dishwasher. I wouldn't mind having a more automated way to do that. It's also a bit annoying when you run out of tablets for your dishwasher or detergent for your washing machine. And it's also a bit annoying having to figure out what's the best offer for those things when you do go shopping for them. So I'd like to automate this part of dishwashing too. I want AI that can help me get the best value products for this stuff and ensure it's always there when I need it. I don't want to have to remember to buy it at the right time and add it to the shopping list along with 1,000 other recurring expenses. And I don't think I'm the only person who thinks this. So I really sympathize with that kind of anti-AI sentiment, but I think it helps contribute to an understanding of why, for example, machine buying is going to be a big thing. And that's why actually my favorite comment came from Just Joshin, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I have been pondering an idea for months whereby an agent could tell me the exact right time to trade in my old technology and get the best deal on either the latest or the next to latest based on value. This video literally blew my mind, and I can't wait for someone to implement this exact thing for the mass consumer. Joshin, yes, like I'm totally with you on that. And when I posted this video, like machine buying will be the megatrend of AI, I did actually think long and hard about should I write might be the megatrend or will be the megatrend. Usually, I don't like speaking in absolutes. Too many people in this world are too sure of themselves these days. The reason why I made it will be the megatrend of AI is because the more I look into this topic, and the more the analysts like at Gartner look into this topic of machine buying, the more they find examples of it just popping up everywhere. I used to work in the British defence industry more than a decade ago. This is me beneath HMS Queen Elizabeth, the flagship of the Royal Navy, shortly before we launched her with Her Majesty the late Queen. And even then, we had begun delivering equipment and big platforms like ships that could diagnose their own maintenance needs and communicate them to contractors on shore. Previously, you'd need to bring in a ship like this for routine maintenance, in which you have to strip apart and possibly replace perfectly fine components because we didn't know accurately which parts have worn down, so we just do it to schedule. But now there's much smarter sensors that can be used on board to automatically communicate with the supply chain. It means the ship can pull up to a dock like a Formula One race car pulls into a pit stop because all its exact servicing needs and new parts are already waiting. This is machine buying, but no one in the defense industry has been calling it that. The engineers developed this stuff because it was just such a logical improvement in efficiency that could be achieved because of new technologies, like improvements in sensors, improvements in machine learning, and other stuff. It's like no one had to first listen to analysts. No one had to first listen to some random YouTuber in his sauna say that this is machine buying and this is the mega trend, whatever. It was just so logical. And that's why you see it now popping up everywhere as the technology develops. And few people are talking about this whole thing on a macro level because that discussion is mostly happening inside large companies. They're the ones already conducting autonomous negotiations with their suppliers. They're the ones preparing for the arrival of custobots. Like, that's why if you want to read about this subject of machine buying more deeply, you won't find too much if you Google machine buying or biobots or whatever. Google custobots, and then you'll start to see a lot more content, because it's all at the moment from the perspective of large companies that can see this coming. A Gartner study that surveyed top business leaders revealed that they collectively believe that about 20% or more of their revenue will come from so-called custobots by 2030. And I mentioned that I've been in Amsterdam because one of the world's biggest procurement conferences, DPW, just took place there. And that's where a lot of companies were talking about how they are using agentic AI, developed in Estonia by Pactum, to conduct autonomous negotiations with their suppliers. You have, for example, Walmart talking about how well it's working for them everywhere they use it, and that's why they are scaling it.
So it's been a continuous evolution, and it's been successful in every country and every category that we've done it in. We just don't see many limits for it, to be honest. I mean, it seems like everything we've used it on, it's been successful. So it's really just continuing that evolution and journey and continuing to find new areas. If we ever run into something and it's not successful, we may pause and try to figure out, what to do differently. But at this point, it feels like the sky's the limit.
And this is the chief procurement officer at Bristol Myers Squibb, for example, making the comparison between their AI agents that they use for autonomous negotiations and robot vacuum cleaners. She totally gets it.
Something like this, which is clearly is here, right? We shouldn't say this is the future, this is the present. It's the only way to 10x all the small negotiations. Not everybody in procurement likes this back and forth with the suppliers. It takes time. And sometimes you are spending the same time with 5 million than with 500 million. Yeah. And so you want your teams to also understand, I'm helping you here. It's like the vacuum cleaner, the robot, the Roomba. I'm helping you here on the, so that you can do the big stuff.
Procurement is so fascinating to me because, let's be honest, no child dreams about growing up to work in procurement. It's not the sexiest function, but it is the most underrated, I think. Like, too often it gets treated as just like an admin function that kind of takes orders from the rest of the business. But actually, there's few things that define a company more deeply than what it buys and its relationship with suppliers. And that's really, it's a value creating function. And it's key to driving innovation and agility across the whole company. And if you want to see the cutting edge of AI, look at what the procurement people are doing right now. That is really interesting. But this isn't getting too much wider attention, and no one's really having this conversation with consumers about how the emergence of biobots can empower them too. Even though it's popping up everywhere, in procure tech, in logistics, but also spreading through consumer tech as well. And I think what we're seeing right now is like an example of convergent evolution. No one is inventing machine buying in the same way that no one invented e-commerce. It just pops up everywhere because it's so logical based on the technologies available. Convergent evolution happens in nature where an evolutionary outcome is so advantageous in a particular environment that it's been created multiple times from many different separate origins. It's why sharks and dolphins look kind of similar, even though one is a fish and one is a mammal, totally unrelated. Bats and birds both evolved wings, but one from skin and one from feathers, no relation, but wings were just a good idea. The eyeball is probably the best example of convergent evolution, as it has different origins across different species, but works pretty much the same. And convergent evolution can also be reoccurring evolution, because it can happen again and again even if it gets wiped out. And something similar to convergent evolution happens in technology too. I remember when I was young, a phone shop would have a huge range of very different models to choose from. Phone design in the 2000s was wild. Now everyone is making pretty much the same flat rectangles. Similar with social media, there was a time when each new social network was so distinctive. Now there are times when I'm scrolling my feed and I can't even remember which social network I'm in. They all have the same features and structure. Actually, the main way to tell the difference between social networks these days is based on which type of conspiracy theories you are scrolling past. Elon Musk has truly become the Henry Ford of our times. And I remember when Facebook used to be feared for its vast data collection and capabilities to target us based on that. And now, like, when I'm scrolling my Facebook feed, it's like pure garbage from accounts I don't follow on subjects I have no interest in. And I bring this up because actually I wanted to mention this post I just saw on Facebook about the mystery of why different ancient civilizations built pyramids. And it's not the first time I've seen this. It's so Facebook. And the idea is that it's evidence of some long lost advanced global civilization or aliens. I didn't realize until I looked it up now that the guy in that meme from the History Channel was actually talking about why he thinks aliens built the pyramids. But the reason why there are so many pyramids around the ancient world built by civilizations unconnected is because if you wanted to build a tall, sturdy structure using the materials available at the time, then the pyramid is a really good fucking design. That too is convergent evolution. There's also an element of survivor bias here. It was such a good design that they survived when so much else of the ancient world didn't. There are lots of things that different ancient cultures developed independently that are just less obvious today than giant pyramids. For example, the sauna or sauna. So the sauna, as most people around the world know it today, is rooted in the tradition of Finno-Ugric peoples. So Estonians and Finns are Finno-Ugric peoples. It's a totally different language family to the rest of Europe. And today is Finno-Ugric Day. That's why my flag isn't behind me as it normally is. It's flying outside for Finno-Ugric Day. But interesting thing with the sauna is that actually when you look around the world, you can find examples of sauna-like traditions in so many different ancient cultures. Native American sweat lodges are very similar. But what makes the sauna special in our part of the world isn't necessarily that it was invented here. No one really invented it. It's that the tradition survived here. And now we can reintroduce the tradition to everyone else around the world and let them rediscover their ancient heritage. Although clearly we still have quite a lot to teach people. Someone did actually ask in the comments if this is a sauna. Yes, I should clarify though that in Estonia, the sauna is not just the hot room. We have a specific word for that, referring to the leil, the steam that we breathe in there. The sauna is the whole building and the whole experience around it. And the sauna throughout Estonian history has always been a multifunctional space. So now this one is also my YouTube studio. So saunas and pyramids are an example of convergent evolution too. And now that I've got that tangent out of the way, my point was just that machine buying too, the way it is popping up everywhere, is also like convergent evolution. There's no inventor of machine buying. It's just such a logical thing to do based on the technologies which are just now becoming available to us. I quickly referred to the example of Maersk trucks in my last video. Let me explain that better because it's really interesting. Maersk is one of the world's largest logistic companies, but they don't actually own hardly any trucks. They are constantly buying in trucking services from many thousands of often quite small mom and pop trucking companies. So it's hugely complex, fragmented spend that has involved constant back and forth phone calls. But when you can send AI agents to continuously negotiate thousands of spot trucking deals each day, then it's so much more efficient. And I've heard from these truck drivers who say they used to have trucks sitting idle for longer periods while new rates and routes were being figured out by humans. But now the AI agents just keep offering the best deals. And you know what? The truckers want to put AI agents on their side too. And I think that would be great for everyone because they're often just agreeing to deals in a very formulaic way also. Sometimes just by ticking off on a spreadsheet whether they have capacity and at what price, they can automate that too. And bot-to-bot autonomous negotiations would be great for everyone. Just let the humans get on with the actual value-creating work. It's kind of similar to what the internet did to taxi services. It's never been easier to get a taxi, and now, of course, when you're in a taxi and you're just getting to your destination, you'll hear this bell just before you arrive, which is the taxi driver being autonomously offered another job nearby. There's just no way that constant back and forth phone calls between humans trying to manage the logistics is going to survive this next wave of AI technology. Certainly not in spending that is fragmented, complex, and high scale. AI can do that. I mentioned that machine buying isn't just good for buyers, it can also be good for the planet and wider society too, because AI doesn't care about, fancy packaging. It's going to go after the data that really matters, which might be like how much carbon did it take to produce this item, or was slave labor used in the supply chain? And people found this very interesting, but it also raised a lot of questions. Who is going to give the ordinary consumer actual truthful information in any area that matters? How will the AI or anyone know about embodied carbon and slave labor? Well, let's take that example of embodied carbon, the carbon cost of producing something. I'm not an expert in this area, but I do know someone who is. Anni Oviir.
Hi, Adam.
You're an expert on calculating embodied carbon for materials in the construction sector. So you've helped write legislation on it, and you've helped companies across Europe and America calculate how much carbon, embodied carbon, is in their products in order to sell them.
That is correct.
It's really interesting because we're talking about machine buying, and this kind of embodied carbon data is the exact kind of complex data that's really interesting when we think about how AI can help us make better purchasing decisions by crunching that kind of complex data. Can you tell us, what's the situation at the moment? Who wants this data?
We need buildings with lower carbon footprint. The market is increasing also because the legislation is requiring this across the world. There are different countries who already have legislation in place that require calculating of building carbon footprint when we apply for building permit. But there are also countries who already have limit values in place that you cannot exceed certain limit value when you are designing your building. And that is driving the market towards low carbon building products. Building product manufacturers need to disclose this kind of data.
Okay, so how do we know the data is reliable?
In construction sector, the most commonly used certificate to prove carbon footprint of a product is Environmental Product Declaration, also known as EPD. So what makes EPD a very good tool is that EPD is third-party verified, and it uses common standards to calculate this footprint. So you can make all sorts of marketing claims, and many building product manufacturers also do that they say lots of good stuff about the product, but it's not backed up by real data. So EPDs are actually evaluating the product carbon footprint in a very transparent way, and also it's verified. That means that it's not self-declared, so it's actually checked by a third party that is making sure that the calculation rules have all been followed according to the standard.
And this all has to be published, so anyone can check it?
Yes, so EPD data is all publicly available.
So there's a lot of greenwashing in marketing, but buyers are increasingly being incentivized to factor in the verified public data.
Correct. When it comes to buildings, then indeed it's not okay to use any data. Especially that's important when we have limit values in place. So when we actually make decision that we can build this building or we cannot build this building, based on the carbon footprint, that means that the data we are using to calculate it has to be also reliable. And it cannot be then self-declared
marketing bullshit.
So EPD doesn't necessarily mean that the product is good or bad. It just is transparently communicated what are the footprint of the product. And that's the first step. Like, in order to improve anything, you need to measure it.
So what happens if you don't have the data?
Well, that means that the contractor or the building designers, they have to calculate the building carbon footprint using average data. And average data is put together using conservative assumptions. That is just not to underestimate the carbon footprint. And that means that this kind of average data is also much worse compared to product-specific data. So that means that the contractors are actually interested in purchasing from building product manufacturers that have available product-specific data, and where they don't have to use then this average environmental data. But also, what is increasingly important is that building product, so the manufacturers who are calculating their own manufacturing impacts, they are interested that their suppliers also have this kind of data available. That means that this data is acquired up and downstream in the supply chains.
So if you can't prove specifically how much embodied carbon is in your product, then the buyers have to assume that your product is probably like a lot less environmentally friendly than it actually is.
Correct. Yeah. So manufacturers who have this kind of data available actually have competitive advantage. And even if the local market where the manufacturer is operating doesn't require this kind of information, then very often the export markets do require that. So, for example, like in Estonia, lots of building product manufacturers, they export to Scandinavia, and Scandinavia has very high requirements for carbon footprint. So it's very hard to even participate in tenders when you don't have documents to prove your carbon footprint. There is a bit of an issue that not all EPD data is yet digitalized. So lots of EPD publishers are working towards getting this EPD data out in digital formats. Yes, so this data is available for anybody to use. And I believe AI could help make this kind of big leap in this sector. If you're a manufacturer and you have this kind of data available, then you can actually start improving your production process, and you can start modifying your supply chains based on the lowest carbon footprint, what you can achieve. And very often, actually, this kind of decisions in the production process are not very expensive to change to improve the carbon footprint. But manufacturers simply do not know that before they do understand what is the carbon footprint of the product.
And if we do move to a world of machine buying, when we've got AI to help us, then the AI can really focus on the verified data, and all the marketing bullshit we can forget about.
Yes, so I think AI can really help with the material specification in construction sector. Material specification is very difficult work for all the contractors. They need to choose materials based on very many criteria. So there is like their performance, like when it comes to, I don't know, like from acoustics to fire resistance to like to the cost. And when you add another parameter, then it becomes just very complex to find the right product that actually meets the needs and also is within the budget.
And embodied carbon is just one more parameter then?
Yeah. The more criteria you add, the more complex it becomes to find the right material. And I think with the help of AI, this kind of products can actually make it to the market. And I believe there are lots of products that are very innovative, and they have very low carbon footprint, but they're just not out there because this kind of manufacturers are not easy to find. So yeah, I think contractors could really benefit with this kind of tools, like an AI purchasing could definitely improve carbon footprint of buildings, because it's extremely difficult to specify low carbon materials today.
So you're looking forward to a world of machine buying?
Yeah, I think machine buying can be good also like in any field, like also when it comes to consumer goods. Like I don't know, like maybe AI could one day like help assist my husband not to buy useless products online, things we don't need. I don't know, like
Such as?
I don't know, popcorn machine.
Anni Oviir, thank you for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I mentioned that I've just been with some of the companies developing machine buying over the past week, and I know some of them are using AI for autonomous negotiations as a way to implement some of their corporate social responsibility initiatives. So, for example, I know one company, a huge company, but which has a commitment to buy more locally from small family businesses around its facilities. And so they tell the AI that. They instruct the AI to factor that into purchasing negotiations, that there are some companies, some types of companies that they want to prioritize doing some business with. And the AI agents have the capacity where humans don't, to actually go and engage with the suppliers, learn more about the suppliers in a way that helps feed into those kind of corporate social responsibility initiatives, so that those companies can make a bigger positive impact in the supply chain. As Annie mentions, we should be developing increasingly good systems for verifying that kind of data, for which there should be increasing demand. And we do also see this when it comes to human rights in the supply chain. There are companies developing AI to better assess supply chains and help fight those things. But here's the thing, you don't actually need like really sophisticated ways of getting the data and assessing what the problem is, because actually the problems are often quite well known. The main issue is actually if we can give more convenience to buyers to help choose products which are ethical, then that is already going to make a huge difference. We are far from perfect solutions, but we're only going to make progress when buyers have more power and sellers are under greater pressure to clean up their shit and to prove it in a way that can be verified. And so I think machine buying can do a great job of helping shift the balance of power and enabling buyers to exercise their purchasing power in ways they may not have thought about before. And that last bit, just the added convenience of making better choices for ourselves and you know, for the planet, is already just can't be understated. So I'm going to end by just looking at one last comment. Which companies engaging in machine buying, autonomous negotiations would you suggest to invest in? I'll leave this question open to everyone. Like, I don't know. I don't even know whether hardware or software is going to really take the lead in this for consumers. The thing is about megatrends is that everyone should be thinking about this and everyone can get involved in it somehow. So there are companies, startups getting into this right now. There are, I'm sure, lots more just getting started, and perhaps some that might hopefully be inspired by some of these videos to give it a go as well and think about what they could be doing. If you can help more people make more timely and efficient purchases in a more convenient way, then I think you're going in the right direction. So I'm sure this has already been a very long video. Thank you for watching this far. Please do like and subscribe. I think in next videos I'll give machine buying a bit of a rest and we'll look at some other interesting topics. Yeah, thank you and stay human.